Hola, amigos! Welcome to another episode of La Vida Verde podcast. I am your host, Sarah Wu at Finca Vida Verde, and my guest today is Matthew Human. He's a musician, a songwriter, producer, land manager. He's the founder and director of Finca Vida Verde and our regular host on this lovely podcast. So excited to talk to him today, and we hope that you enjoy. Matthew Human, welcome to La Vida Verde podcast.
Thank you, Sarah Wu. It's an honor to be here.
It's so nice to have you today.
Thank you.
So there's lots of things we can get into and talk about. You have such a deep history, and some of the things that have inspired me and challenged me to think deeper and expand my worldview in many ways throughout the years has been this history that you've had, with activism and food sovereignty and how that's how I first knew you, and also through your music and how that translates. And I have always really loved, like some of the classic musical activists, like Bob Dylan and Rage Against the Machine and like those types of things.
People always used to tell me I looked like the guy from Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, a little
when
bit.
my hair was the right shape. I mean, I don't see it so much.
Could be.
But I'd like that.
Zach De La Roca.
Zach De La Roca's.
He's a badass. He's a badass. And, and like I watched this. We've known each other for a long time, and I've got to see this evolution of you from this kind of musical and direct action phase into this land-based person. And I've seen you really shift and evolved throughout the years. And so I'd love to hear a little bit just about, your history for our listeners, for those watching out here who may not know. They know you now, but maybe they didn't know you then. So would you share with us a little bit about your history with this direct action activism and how you merged food and music and environmentalism together and a part of that journey and how it brought you here today?
This is a big question. This is a big question. First of all, thank you for hosting today. Sarah, I am the regular host of this podcast.
Are you?
Yes, I am.
Thanks.
And Sarah Wu has graciously offered to host because people were like, Human, how come no one's interviewing you? You have this history. Like, people want to know about you too. So thank you for offering. And I mean, I was born in New York, upstate New York. That's what we have in common. I would say like a middle class to lower middle class family, like working class family. Yeah. But we always had everything we needed, super comfortable. I was raised, I'm pretty standard American. Those people who have watched the podcast over the years have heard me say some of these things, but I worked at Burger King, I worked at BP, I was very in the Matrix. And, but always loved music. I mean, the Beatles, Abbey Road was huge for me. Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, the Grateful Dead, Fish.
Gosh, I mean, I guess didn't even mention Willie, but Willie was such a big influence for you too,
sure.
Especially with the environmental side of musical activism.
Yeah, and because he was an activist, his music isn't activism really. Musically, we're different in that way. His music was not direct action, his music is more great songs, but in his personal life, he's an activist, which I appreciate. It's different than me, though. I guess it all started for me one day. After I finished high school, I took a year off. I was working at a gas station, working night shift, and I would take my nights off. I would stay at home because I was working the night shift. My nights off were very I didn't know what to do because I was up all night. So my parents would be sleeping. I was still living at home. My parents would be sleeping. I would just get super stoned because I was a big stoner then. And I was trying to get, it was actually a good medicine for me at the time because it was helping me to get out of break habits. My family would, they were good people, but it was, we didn't have great communication at home. It was communication was never a big thing. There was a lot of yelling and a lot of TV, and I didn't want those things. I knew I didn't want those things to continue in my life.
Especially for creative expression, that's where cannabis is such an amazing medicine, right? Because it just opens up channels of new thought and ways to like see life differently.
It just showed, yeah, it was
Mhm.
exactly. That's what it was for me. It was like
Mhm.
this whole other perspective, sorry. It's this whole other perspective, and so one night I was at home. I used to, you know, go to friends' house like that, but eventually they'd go to bed, I'd come home, and I would be, like, ripped walking around the house, and I remember walking into the pantry one day and seeing Raisin Bran. I loved Raisin Bran with, at the time, it was milk and then eventually soy milk.
Uh-huh.
I think it might have been milk, regular milk at this time, and I looked at the Raisin Bran and I was, like, reading and I realized the first time ever I, like, read the ingredient. I was so high, I was, like, reading the ingredients, and I was like, "I don't know what these things are, and yet they're becoming a part of me." Like, the food we are what we eat, that kept ringing through my head, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"What I'm eating, I have no idea what I mean, these things don't look good for me." So that was, like, my big aha moment, really
Mm.
the biggest one. And then so that got me on, like, the food
Mhm.
stuff where I started,
How old
like
were you at this time?
I was, 17, 8 no, I was 18 or 19.
Mhm.
I was 19. And then I went to college. I went to Kent State University, which had a very rich history of
That's
activism.
true, yep.
I was also a cannabis. I started writing letters to the USA Today about. I became an activist early about cannabis. I was a weed activist. I was like, this medicine that's helping me so much. And I was meeting patients, cancer and AIDS patients who were getting arrested. Literally, the cops in Ohio were arresting patients, sick and dying people for using the only medicine that was offering them any kind of relief. And I'm like, this is there can't be good. This doesn't make any sense. So I became a majorly involved in cannabis activism, going to normal rallies in Cleveland and like
Tell us what were the normal rallies?
Normal National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. At the time, this was like, going since the 70s. This was an
Mhm.
organization. And now it seems kind of like a moot point. People forget. People nowadays, like cannabis is legal all over
It's
the place.
available.
We were
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah.
What we did, my mom is like, has access to gummies. You know what I mean? It's like everyone
Well, and it
does.
shifted so many people's perspectives as well because, through the, 30s, 40s, 50s, and then into like the Reagan years and the drug wars,
Right.
right? Like it really took this amazing medicine and it made it so extremely taboo and, this like demon plant,
Yeah.
And so even look at how people's minds have totally shifted,
Yeah.
because of what the plant is
Oh,
itself, but
it
also that
changed it
activism.
changed culture. I really believe, like,
Yeah, it
that
did.
plant had an important part in our world,
Mhm.
like, in creating
It's
in
also why we have the receptors in our brains.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, that the
Mhm.
endocannabinoid receptor. I mean, that's a whole
Whole
we
other
could have a whole
podcast.
podcast about this. Like, I do have a lot of deep respect for the plant. I don't even really smoke much anymore,
Mhm.
but, like, for years, this was my passion, and so the medical marijuana, I was very involved in that, and then the food, I started learning about food, so these things kind of started happening. When I went to college, I was very involved in got really involved in direct action, more direct action stuff. I started, co-founded SEED, Students for Eliminating Environmental Destruction, our local environmental group. Joined the all campus programming board. So we were a student leadership position. So we took leadership courses. We got paid by the university and I was the festival arts director. I got paid to produce epic festivals.
Nice.
Toots and the Maytals, Ozomatli. We brought String Cheese Incident, David Grisman Quintet, Talib Kweli. We brought Black Star. We brought all kinds of amazing, Most Def. Did we bring Talib Kweli? I think we did. Yeah, with Most Def. I think we had a lot of great artists. So that's where I got into production and music production. And at the same time, I was starting to go to rainbow gatherings. So it was
And what
like
were you playing yourself at the time? Because I know you were in band
I was in
in
marching band. I
in
played
high
the
school.
saxophone.
But then
Yeah.
how did your own, when did you pick up guitar for the first time?
I picked up the guitar when I was 14. When we moved to Nashville, all the jocks, even the jocks played guitar in
Uh-huh.
Nashville. That whole thing in Ohio, we had these very strict kind of what I saw as very kind of strict like like
Uh-huh.
you're a jock, you're a prep, you're a this is
You're
a
an artist, you're a stoner,
I
you're
think
a
people were
skater.
just very
It's kids seeking
stuck
identity.
in
Uh-huh.
exactly. They were learning from television because that's all they had access to. When I was in Tennessee, I saw a different side of more opportunity. It was a bigger place, different cultures. I became the first, like almost a minority in my school. Like got
Mhm.
to be in a majority black
And
school.
they called you little white boy, right?
Little white boy. That was my
Yeah.
nickname for a little while. And I liked it. I didn't care. I was like, this is cool. I like seeing new cultures and
Uh-huh.
like, I don't mind being a little white boy. Like whatever. Um, it was nice. It was fresh, and I learned and then also the jocks played guitar, and so I was in the marching band, and I remember sitting like watching these two guys, I don't even Casey and Spencer playing it. If you guys are watching, hey, like playing guitar and like with a pile of girls around them at band camp. And
That was another aha moment.
it's another aha
Ah.
moment. And I was like, well, not only because the girls, I mean, that was obviously, I was a 14-year-old virgin, and I was like, yeah, that looks good. But also, like, I was, like just all the songs. It was so fun.
Mhm.
People love to sit and sing songs. So yeah, I started playing, like, learning the guitar. I taught myself the guitar. I learned from friends. I took some, and then piano. I started learning piano. I got a keyboard. I got a drum, a little, percussion. I started going to drum circles, and I smoked weed for the first time in 16 in Tennessee,
Uh-huh.
and then listened to the Grateful Dead, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing. So in college, I started going to like I used to go out and to go to concerts. Like local jam bands would come around. This was before Instagram, before Facebook, before
All
you
of it.
really YouTube
Yeah.
had just started. People weren't like online. People's lives
No,
were in
things were
person.
passed by tapes,
Yeah, exactly.
and like bootleg tapes from the concerts and stuff, especially with bands like Grateful Dead. I guess Fish produced more, or Dave Matthews, they were
Well,
more
both. But I had
produced.
live tapes of. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way it
Yeah.
was, and like people they didn't get their activity online. They would actually go out to clubs and bars to see music. You would choose the
Mhm.
music that you liked and go meet people that had similar,
Uh-huh.
experiences. And
And so
same.
that was also probably such a big, like, taste into community life for you as
Yeah,
well, because I know that those bands in particular, like, really fostered
totally.
a certain sense of community,
It
you
totally
know?
was. The
Mhm.
Grateful Dead, going to Grateful Dead. It wasn't Grateful Dead at that point because Jerry Garcia
Was it
had
more
died.
Fish?
It was the other ones.
Oh, okay.
And then I went to that was my first like kind of concert. And then I heard about Fish at that show, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, what's Fish all about? I'm gonna go check them out. And I loved Fish. I loved the music. I loved to smoke weed and dance. That was like my
Uh-huh.
happy place. And so I used to go to these local jam band concerts, and I would just get lost in the music, and I'd
Mm.
be like dancing and like realize like I'm also really tuned into the lyrics, and sometimes the lyrics weren't that good.
Well, especially with Fish, the
Fish
lyrics are a
was
little
so stupid.
silly.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it was just
yeah.
like
But there's other
this.
lyrics
I
that were really good.
realized it was such a powerful space. Like I have their people's full attention. Some of these people are in this like kind of meditative space, and I was like, what if I was like writing lyrics? Like what would I say to people?
Mm.
So I started writing I would already been writing songs, but they were kind of like,
Mhm.
Chuck the Raven. I have a song called Chuck the Raven, which, it had a
Uh,
message.
that's that old,
Yeah.
that song.
Oh
That's a
yeah, it
good
was one
one.
of the
Chuck
first
the
songs I
Raven's a
ever
cool
wrote.
song.
18, I was 18 when I
Uh-huh.
wrote that. I was still in high school.
Wow.
But then I started writing more songs, and I was just telling this story last night that we played last night at Buen Camino. Um I was I never got stoned before classes, but I was in an anthropology class, and I got really ripped before class one day. And the teacher starts talking about rain shadows. And a rain shadow is when you have a really big mountain and you have
Uh-huh.
clouds come up to the weather moves in a specific direction. The clouds, when they're heavy, they can't go through the mountain, so they drop their moisture on one side of the mountain so they can lift up and keep moving. And on the other side, because that the weather moves in a certain direction, it's almost always wet on this side of the mountain and dry on the other
Uh-huh.
side of the mountain. So the dry
Hence
side.
why we have things like Mediterranean climates.
Exactly. And the dry side is the rain shadow. And something hit me in that moment because I was into this. The US was involved in, we hadn't yet, 9/11 hadn't happened yet.
Mhm.
So but we were involved in all these wars, and like every
Well,
day
it
on
was
the
Desert Storm
news
when we were kids,
before it was
right? And,
Desert
like,
Storm then,
Bosnia and
and then
mhm.
Bosnia, exactly.
Mhm.
And I was just like, and we're producing all these bombs, and we're producing all these missiles, and we're sending warships to all these other countries. And it became a metaphor for me. I was like, we are like we're like in this rain shadow where it's always bombs are always dropping in these other places, but it seems so far
Oh,
away. I can't even relate to it. Like I feel so safe in this country, and then the line, it's just a matter of time before the rain is falling on our side. And I felt it. 3 days later, 9/11 happened. 2 weeks later, I'm singing this song and I realize I wrote this song about 9/11 before 9/11,
I
and
just got truth
I
bumps.
got them too. I tell every time I tell this story
Mm.
because it really is like deep for me. And I was talking to other artists around that time, poets and painters, and they also had a similar
Mhm.
experience where they were like writing about these things and drawing these things and painting these things. There was something in the collective consciousness at the time. And I just realized, I was like, wow, this is like a powerful song. It was like channeled from a deeper place that I don't even know where it came. I mean, it was one of those songs that just, the best
Flowed.
songs, they just come. You don't think about them. You're not thinking about how is this gonna work with
Well,
audiences
that's
or
the muse, right? That's
it's
like
the
the creative
muse.
channel and the muse coming through. Mhm.
So yeah, so it was very like deep. And at that point, I realized at some point I was like, I have tapped into a gift. I didn't,
Mm.
that not everybody has.
Mhm.
And so that was when I dropped out of college and I just started touring, living on the road
Dedicating to
and
music.
dedicated to music.
Yeah, and so many of your songs, I mean, like, they're interesting, like, for example, your song "Breathe," and it's, like, just about, like, taking breath and this, like, connective essence that every single creature on the planet shares, and then it goes into, like, this kinda heavy shit,
Right.
Like, and it lightens it up, and it takes it heavy, and your music was really in that, and then you came to Costa Rica, right?
Yeah.
And you came to Costa Rica, and I saw in you this shift, especially as you started living a different way, because living on the road as a musician
Yeah.
is completely different, and I'm sure, like, in really cool places, earth-based, community places and
Yeah.
stuff and rainbow gatherings and everything,
Yeah.
but actually becoming land-bound was something so different for you, and I've even seen your music in these years shift more into storytelling of the land,
Yeah.
and so can you share a little bit with us about your experience through becoming, like a farmer and a land steward and a land tender and not just having it be a little bit more philosophical or telling the
Yeah.
story of other people, but actually embodying it yourself.
Yeah, well, like you said, I was on the road for like literally almost 20 years, like I had a band, we toured, I moved to California, I moved to Oregon, I moved back to Tennessee. I mean, my life was just I didn't have a home. I was constantly on the road. I would tour in the summer, go trim weed in the fall. I worked on and lived on a lot of farms. When I
Mhm,
was touring, we would stay, if I had like a few days off, I would go to a friend's farm. I had a number of these all over America that I could like go to and
mhm.
just like post up for a week or something and take a break. So I spent a lot of time on farms. Actually, after college, I went and lived on a farm in southern Ohio and took care of animals, llamas,
Mm,
and goats. And I learned, so that was like my first experience, like being on a farm. And then from then, like my life just became, cannabis farms in Northern California. I lived on a bunch
mhm,
of cannabis farms, worked on them. And then like I said, touring, I would stop and go to, and I would trade. I would do work trade. So I would
mhm,
work the land in between being on the road. So I wasn't like entirely disconnected.
mhm.
I've always felt the necessity to be connected. And then rainbow gatherings. Also, like every summer I went to the rainbow gathering, wherever it was in the United States. For those of you who don't know, it's like been happening since
That are
1970.
actually all over the world.
They are now, yeah. It
Mhm,
started in 1972 in Granby, Colorado, and then every year in the U.S. is the big national one, and
mhm,
it's like they have in a different national park every year. And so I got to tour and go into these deep landscape places that like most people never go to. It's deep in a national park. You have to hike in. It's usually 10, 7 to 10 miles hiking in to get in. And so living in community, that was my first experience, like living off the grid. There's no electricity, there's no power. It's all sitting around fires.
hmm.
It's all
Well, it's community kitchens,
community
and when we
kitchens.
think of alternative economics,
Exactly.
right?
No money,
Mhm,
no dollars, zero money. Everything is trade, everything is donation, it's all volunteer. I started realizing at some point this was how I wanted to live. And I also started realizing that it wasn't entirely sustainable the way it was. Like a
Mm.
rainbow gathering couldn't just post up and create a village.
Mhm.
The Native Americans moved around.
Uh-huh.
That they were bands, they were nomadic bands. They weren't entirely nomadic. They had their space, but they wouldn't stay in one place. They would
Mhm.
move around and then they would gather with other tribes and they would have these kind of gatherings. So I realized like in order to do it right, I had to, kind of do something different. So we needed like more long-term sustainability. That's what I was seeking. I
Mhm.
wanted a safe place.
And there's also that transition,
Yeah,
from the current economic models and
right,
and lifestyles
right.
into, where it's like, into potentially barter and service-based, economic models where it's like rainbow is almost like too extreme that you needed to find that middle ground to be
Exactly.
able to get where we
Rainbow,
are.
exactly.
Mhm.
It is the extreme. But I loved walking to different fires and
Uh-huh.
going and playing music and then going to another fire and eating this food and then going to another. It's like it's one of the most magical things. I still love it every time I go. It's a really beautiful experience. Um but it kind of prepared me for living at Taquatal because Taquatal in the early days
Mhm.
was there was nothing here. I mean, we were homesteading land. I was used to that. I was used to like, well, not entirely homesteading, but like
You're used to being able to rough it and
pooping in
create
a hole.
shelter and
Yeah, like exactly,
Yeah.
like living living in a tent and pooping in a hole and living around the fire
Well,
and
that's, like, what's so different with Taco Tal and a lot of the other, like, eco developments around is, like, we really roughed it
yeah,
for a long time,
yeah,
like, where a lot of these other developments, they're developments. They're
yeah,
very much dependent on a group coming in
yeah.
and creating all that infrastructure from, like, roads to laying their water lines, and we're
Yep.
still even, like, 15 years in, like, figuring out our water,
Well, we got it
and we
figured
gotta
out.
figure
We're
it out,
just
but it's the infrastructural
yeah.
side of it,
It's
right?
a slow, it's the in
Yeah,
some ways, I think I try to the way I try to look at it is like, it's permaculture.
it is.
It's
Yeah.
slow, it's not fast, it's
Exactly.
in a lot of ways, there's a lot of wisdom to it. In other ways, it's a little bit frustrating because we didn't there's a benefit to raising the money ahead and doing it all.
Mhm.
The negative side is you're not really most people aren't a part of it. So
No,
most of the people like living in Alegria and Ecovia San Mateo,
they're kinda plug and play in
yeah,
many
they
ways.
kinda just joined
Yeah,
and it was already done. They didn't
yeah,
have to plant fruit trees. Like,
uh-huh.
I planted every single tree
Yeah,
I planted every single tree on this land,
yeah, and as
with my
because
own hands.
totally,
I've
and as
watched it
that,
grow from,
like
like, this
but
to fruiting.
exactly, and this being permaculture, right, our first principle of permaculture is observe and interact, and then you kinda move down the line of the principles, but there's also the slow and the small solution, right? And then the final principle of permaculture, which is my favorite one, is creatively use and respond to change,
Mm.
and I just see it here in our community with Taco Tal with this, like, slow, very organic, very observant way, and also how we've adapted. We've adapted to each other. We've adapted to the necessity of the land, and it hasn't been, like, carved out and designed, for us to come and, like, plug into. We've really had to even shift our designs throughout the years with even things like creating, like, roads and trails,
Yeah,
and, for those of you who are interested in permaculture, I really do encourage you to either take a PDC or start to
totally.
read up about it because there's this other principle, the scale of permanence of, like, how do we make decisions?
Mm.
And so even just having like simple trails right away, instead of just like plugging in roads based on looking at, contour maps, is we were actually able to interact with landscapes
Yep,
in a way that is very holistic,
yeah.
and I think it's one of the most beautiful things that we have here in our community. So can you share with us a little bit about your process with like how did you make decisions
Well,
on your land?
I started by just what was available. So
Mhm.
when I first got here, Bradley brought me here. It was already they had cleared a little space for me, knowing I was coming. It was
Mhm.
supposed to be a temporary camp, and eventually I just like this place is as good as any.
Is that where your house is right
This
now? Is your
next
temporary camp?
no, but that wasn't cleared. This land was completely covered with taquatal when I got here. I mean,
And have
it
you explained to the audience what
what is
taco tal
taquatal
is?
is a system. I have at some point, but taquatal is a is the system that grows back. It's
Mhm.
fast growing pioneer species that grow back after a land has been cleared. Like after, so this was all
We call it a
cattle land.
secondary succession.
This was all cattle
Mhm.
land at one point. It was all very open. And like these trees that are behind us, actually, when I got here, were shrubs. They were not trees. Um, now they're full on trees, but everything was just, it was just covered, but it was
Mhm.
like brushy, shrubby, hardy, lots of vines, lots of really thick vines,
Mhm.
lots of spiky things. Even to get to the point of planting fruit trees, I've spent a lot of years with a pickaxe pulling out roots out of, like,
Uh-huh.
no one will ever know. I'm telling you now, but no one will ever know how much work I have, blood, sweat, and tears I have put into this land. Because, yeah, there's easier ways to do it. You could hire a backhoe, you could hire a team to come in and do it. But I didn't have the
But we
money.
know, yeah, exactly.
I didn't have the
It's
money, I didn't have the
uh-huh.
resources, I didn't have access because we couldn't get backhoes up here back then. It took a long time before we were able to do that. So that was, but first it was just like necessity. Like the land really was talking. I listened. It's like, well, this makes sense over here.
Mm.
This makes sense over here. This makes sense. And then eventually, like, I wish I had taken my PDC first. I didn't.
Yeah, because you took your PDC in
It's like
2015, 16,
14.
14.
Yeah, and I
Yeah, so you're
was
already almost like
5 years in,
yeah,
7 years in, six
yeah,
years in, 6 or 7. We started in 2000. I bought the land in
7.
2008.
Mhm.
So yeah, 7 years in,
Mhm.
6 years in. And I already had a house, and I already,
Mhm.
we permaculture. I had talked to Gustavo. Gustavo helped me with a basic permaculture design. I didn't, stick to it much though. I
Mhm.
was just kind of like,
And so what did you learn then after like 5 years in and experimenting and listening to the land speak and making mistakes, I'm sure, and having like the successes? How did actually like taking a PDC, permaculture design course, how did that shift how you viewed your experience on your land and how you worked with the land?
well, I mean, a lot of it. First of all, I've been following Steven around for
Hmm.
10 years, like listening to him. So
And
I learned,
Bradley
and
too.
Bradley, yeah, but Brad and
He's
I,
very natural with it.
Bradley is also, I learned a lot from Brad as well.
Hmm.
But Steven, was closer with him.
Uh-huh.
So just hearing his, he has these talking points,
Uh-huh.
he repeats them and they stick.
Uh-huh.
And he has a lot of wisdom. A lot of them are very intelligent. And so I learned a lot of things just kind of like walking around with him. But then, yes, the PDC is a much deeper,
Hmm.
people think they understand permaculture. And I didn't. Even after 10 years of following Steven around, permaculture is not just organic food. It's not just organic farming. It is design.
Yes.
And that helped me like, okay, what makes sense? Start thinking about what are my needs? What do I want to do? At some point, I just kind of, it just flipped. It's like Steven always says, it's like a pair of glasses. You put on
Yeah.
your permaculture
Or
lens.
the new app.
New app. Yeah, it's like you see things differently.
Mhm.
And so that's what it really did for me.
Mm.
And then during COVID was when, Ecovia was full.
Mhm.
Alegria is now being developed, and
Mhm.
suddenly Alegria starts selling like hotcakes because all these people are like,
Get me the F out.
yeah. And
Yeah.
my vision was always for this place was I was very inspired by Punta Mona. I
Mhm.
loved Punta Mona. I was just, my heart is, every time I'm there, feel so, I love the
Such a
community.
deep
I
teacher,
love the
isn't it?
vibe. I also
Yeah.
saw that like these very, wealthy people were willing to rough it a little bit. And it's a need almost, not to like create a rough situation, but like to like a way you can bring people back to nature
Mm.
and also do it comfortably. And so
Mhm.
that's my goal here. I have baños secos. We have to switch to baños secos. I'm sorry, but like
I
pooping in
agree.
water to
It's
me
the worst design
is the most
almost. Yeah.
unsustainable thing we
Yeah.
do. And I know that that's a controversy. People don't like talk about it, but like everyone wants to poop in their
It's fecal
toilet.
phobia.
But it
That's
really
another
is. It's like
podcast.
turn your poop back into soil. It is the most duh thing if you start thinking about it. Read the Human Manure Handbook. It's one of my Bibles.
Mhm.
And so we have composting toilets, but I also wanted to have these spaces that are very comfortable, very nice, like clean,
Cozy.
cozy,
Mhm.
and yeah, I have king size beds in the rooms,
Well,
and
and that's like, we romanticize maybe previous generations of like, oh, they live so close to the land and da da da. And it looks great in images. It's kind of the same thing when you go in the jungle for the first time. You see
yeah,
these images of the jungle and you realize that there are exponentially more bugs
yeah,
than humans will ever exist on this planet. And you
exactly,
are a buffet to them,
yes,
right? But it doesn't look like that in pictures. And so, we read these like things, or we see these like pastoral images, and then what we don't realize is actually it's
it
hard,
was a hard
It was a
life,
really hard life,
yeah,
and people didn't live. I mean, we were elders, right now we're like middlers at our
Yeah,
ages
by
in our
our age, yeah,
40s,
for sure.
but like
Yeah.
at that time, like even 150 years ago, it was like 40, 60 years old was
Yep.
like you were an old person because you're working hard, you're working the land, you
Yep.
didn't understand certain things. And so this is also what's really beautiful with our permaculture philosophies and why it's so appropriate right now to the human need is that it's taking our modern understanding and our modern context and our tech, and all this like human brilliance, and it's merging it with the wisdom of the
Right.
past,
Totally.
and it doesn't mean that we have to go back to being like living until 40. I don't know, maybe it'd be a good thing for
No.
humankind right now. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe another podcast, but but it's like it's helping us to take earth-based living and evolve it into our future. And it's not like about devolving, but it's about like adaptation and this evolution of humankind. And this evolution of humankind is coming back into the systems of life. you know
Yeah, kind of merging the old with the new and
mhm
trying to adapt, but just
mhm
take on what's good. Like I
mhm
finally have with Starlink coming
I know.
this week.
Starlink,
We're gonna
we're
have
getting
Starlink.
Starlink.
I got a Wi-Fi mesh already. I'm
I'm
like,
getting one too.
yes, let's get this. Like, we need that.
Controversial Elon Musk, thank you for bringing people
No, but
off the
it's like
grid
we need
into the
Wi-Fi.
net.
I lived for 10 years without a real solar system. We didn't have a refrigerator for 10
Uh-huh.
years. I did get lights. I think year 6 was when I got basic lights. I had candles and flashlight and headlamps up until that
It's
point.
funny, the whole refrigerator thing, because I had a moment, especially when I lived at Punta Mono, where I was like, we don't need a fridge. We don't need condimentia.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
No.
want to hold on to all this
It's
stuff.
nice to have a
And I
refrigerator. I
and I
mean,
remember saying to a group of students, I was like, and if you have a fridge, and everyone looked at me like, what do you mean if
if
we
we
have
have
a
a
fridge?
fridge,
I was like,
exactly.
oh. And then, I opted to get like that little like frat dorm
Oh
fridge.
yeah.
And I was like such a stickler about how it was worked with. And now, I'm still got you and me, we both have like our smaller fridges because we're like,
Well, it's not I
yeah,
don't it's
it
not
is
because
nice
I don't
though.
want a small fridge, it's because my solar system can't handle a
See,
big
I don't want a
fridge.
big fridge because I
I
don't
do.
want it filled with like random jars of stuff.
Yeah. No, I have guests and stuff, so I have, but yeah, it's nice to have a refrigerator, but it's nice to also know that I can survive without it. I
hmm
know how to, I mean, I'm glad I had those 10
Oh
years
yeah.
of like living off the grid completely. I mean, even without solar, it's like I can survive. I know how to get water. I know how to get food. I know how to
hmm
survive. I know how to get shelter. It's like, to me, those are the most basic things. And
hmm
once I learned those things, a deep, deep, deep part of me was healed.
Yeah.
There was a constant subconscious fear, and I think everybody has this, how to survive.
Yeah. So funny.
And so people cling to the money system because that's all they know.
hmm
Money is how they survive. But
hmm
what happens when people stop believing in the money system? Because it only survives based on belief.
Uh-huh.
And the truth and the reality is, if we all stop just saying, you know what? Money's not worth anything anymore. Give me something of value. Give
hmm
me something I can use. Give me food. If we stopped using money, it would cease to exist.
Well, and this is that transitional belief. So in permaculture, we also have this concept of transitional ethics, and so this is where we're at right now. Is that we're in a big transition, and for me, looking at how we live our lives and this work that we're doing, and looking at the state of the world today, which is just completely devastating. And watching our world fray apart, and then watching us also trying to weave it back together, and all of you watching, like wanting and trying to weave things back together. It's like things might not actually happen in our lifetime, and that's actually okay.
Yeah.
This is also the metaphor of planting the tree and the
Yeah.
fruit tree. It's because it's going to feed, and the direct contradiction to our current system, which is a monoculture, annual based.
Right.
And so it's like we don't live in just this one moment. It's like, yes, we want to be present, but we're also deeply thinking about how the future is
Oh, we
affected.
think
So
about 7 generations in ahead. This is what one of I
exactly,
can't remember which
it's the
tribe,
Iroquois
the
nation.
Iroquois. You which is where we're from. That
Yeah,
we're from Iroquois land,
yeah,
both of
exactly.
us. I was born in outside of
Mm-hmm.
Seneca land, and it's in Mohawk,
Mm-hmm.
Seneca and Mohawk,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mine was the Cayuga.
Cayuga.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean that was the Iroquois Confederacy
Mm-hmm.
was the original democracy.
Mm-hmm.
We learned from them how to survive in this
Mm-hmm.
country. If it wasn't for the Iroquois, I mean not this
The
country,
United
in the
States.
United States, which is it's funny. I often mix them up because now I'm so back and I'm like I live here now. I'm in Costa Rica, and yet I feel like my life is like merged into one. I've been
Mm.
here now for 16 years. I've been full-time here for 5 years. I love Costa Rica, and I also
That's where you were born, so it influenced a lot
the
of your
US,
worldview.
exactly. Well, and also when I'm with you because we're both from
Well, and
New
we're from the
York.
same place too.
I forget
And we're the
sometimes.
same
Or
generation. We watch the same
yes, we
cartoons.
watch the same
So,
cartoons. Um,
but I wanna get back to some of the point of, like, just because for timing
don't
and
call me, don't
everything,
call me.
sorry, just
No,
gonna
you're doing a good
rein
job.
it
You're doing a great
in.
job. Please reel me in.
So some of the things I wanna just look at in your transition
Yep,
and, bringing people here
yep,
to Finca Vida Verde, if you
yes.
haven't had the opportunity to come and visit us yet, Tacotal is just beautiful. The Rio Machuca is an absolutely stunning river. It's just so alive. Our valley is really blossoming. It's so lovely. So tell us, like, what can people expect with a day on the farm if they came to
Aw,
visit?
thanks, Sarah Wu. Yeah, Finca Vida Verde. I mean, so it started just a little bit of history. Started during COVID. I had always wanted to have this kind of life, and so we started. I started building it into a business during COVID and taking on investors so I could raise the money. I would have done it myself if I had the money, but I don't. So, part of living in
But that's a part of
community,
the transition
working in
also,
community,
right?
transition. And
That
I'm
we
not
know that we
saying
still need it.
I'm not
It's
saying we should get rid of money. Don't get
yeah.
me wrong. I wasn't trying to say that. I'm just saying, like, having that understanding of how to survive is filled a deep need for me. And now that I have that, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to learn. Now I'm going to use this wisdom and from that place grow this business and teach other people and inspire other people to learn these things because that's my passion.
Mm.
So having a place where people can come and no matter what retreat they have. So the idea is we have these cabins. I want to build more cabins. I want next phase is build 3 or 4 more cabins right here. Every day I go walk over there and I'm like, I see them and I can't do anything about it because I don't have the money yet. The lodge, the event center, and redo the main
Community
house.
house.
This is all like the future of Finca Vida Verde, but the idea is to have a center, an ecological education and retreat center, and not just for ecological education, but that's my passion.
Mhm.
Permaculture, herbalism, astrology, tantra, community, music, things that inspire people and help what I believe help society grow and evolve. So I'm in this like transition of developing this retreat center. I also have guests come and like campers. We have 2 glamping tents. We have a couple tents you can rent. We have a cabin that's available. We have another room. And again, I want to build these 4 more cabins right here. And the idea is just come here and be. I mean, people come here for various reasons. Some people come
Mhm.
and they want to write. Some people come, they just want to live. Some people are come. A lot of people right now are coming while they build their houses in other parts of the valley. It's just a really beautiful place to be. You're surrounded by nature. These trees have healed me.
Mm.
I swear to God, I don't smoke weed anymore. I stopped at some point, and it's not because I have philosophical more. I just didn't need it as much anymore. I'm living on the earth. I'm living in the trees, and I'm telling you, my nervous system,
Mm.
I don't seem it now because I've had a lot of mate and not a lot of food, but my nervous system living here in general, my baseline is so much chiller.
Uh-huh. I
When I
agree
if
with
I
you with
was in
that.
the United States, for sure I would still need to
Or
smoke
other
weed just to get
places.
like
Yeah.
I don't know other places. I
Well,
just
no,
know
I
the
mean,
US.
even other places, like, more urban or suburban dwellings, where it's, like, the sounds, for example, it's like there's light pollution, there's sound pollution, you have to sit in a car
Yeah.
or even take public trans, it's still stressful,
Yeah, I like
on the
walking.
body, like, it's so nice, like, I know for me, getting up and being able to, like, walk over to your
Yeah,
house, and
exactly.
it's, walk with friends and, like, do the, like, kinda thing, in the mornings or in the evenings, wherever, it's like, it really does, like, bring us back into, I think, our actual true essence
Yeah,
as humans
totally.
relating, and
Walking
humans
to each other's
being
houses,
yeah.
the fires at night, like, there's always something going on,
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
the rainy season's a little bit more
Mhm.
internal, I think.
Mhm.
That's another reason why I wanna redo these spaces so we can have more, like, community stuff,
During our
during the
rainy
rainy
season. Yeah,
season,
'cause the
which
rainy season is also so magical.
it's magical, it's beautiful, I
Beautiful.
love the rainy season here.
Wow. Yeah, me
But,
too.
I need the lodge, the
So day
shelter.
in a life, let's get back to it. What can someone expect when they come
I
here?
don't know, you wake up, it's a beautiful beautiful day. I don't know.
And
Like,
see, I hear monkeys in the
there's
trees
monkeys, there's birds. You
calling.
wake up to nature
Uh-huh.
every morning, no
Lots of
doubt.
trails to go walking on. We got this beautiful
The
river,
river, I love
and
it. The
we
river is
have
why
a
I'm here.
oh, it's so amazing. And we have a weekly farmers market or like ecoferia, like a eco gathering, like there's stuff vended, there's food, there's usually like music, and that's in one of the other local communities.
There's
Um,
like there's other local communities. There's always something going on in
there's
this
always something
community.
happening. Yeah,
Last night we
but
had a concert. There was also the parade in San Mateo. Tonight
I heard
there's
it was
another
really cute.
parade in Oratina. It's like there's always something going on around here. And in Ecovia they have yoga class. It's not and we're not like it. It's we have an unspoken bond with the community. It's a really beautiful thing. It's
Mhm.
like I don't really look at Taco Tal is one community, Alegria, Ecovia. We're different in how we form and we have somewhat different philosophies. But the truth is, we're all one big community. The Machuca
Mhm.
Valley to me is one big community. Go to Alegria events,
Mhm.
Ecovia events. I invite them to my farm for
Mhm.
parties. But yeah, it's really all about everything in nature
Mm.
and eating
Yes.
simple. We have a vegetarian kitchen here, so I love to cook. I love to cook. I love to cook with other people. I love to have music.
And
We
you also take a few volunteers besides guests. You always have like one or two,
Yeah, yeah.
per season. So that's
I'm being
another option for
more
people.
picky these days. I'm very
It's
like,
okay,
yeah,
as you
you have
should
to
be
be
when you have a
I'm
lot
being
of
more
experience.
selective of the energy because some people require more energy than others and but yeah, we open to certain volunteer
Mhm.
positions. I like to have guests right now, in the transition of building the retreat center, just having guests. And of
Mhm.
course, we host Sarah's herbalism retreat every year. The herbalism retreat is amazing. It's one of my favorite
It's an
ones.
apprenticeship. It's not a retreat
Herbalism
or
apprenticeship.
immersion. You're learning a lot.
But yeah, it's always one of my favorites of the year. I
Yeah.
love making breakfast. I love like waking up and having all these cool people around. I love the retreats. It's one of
Hmm.
my favorite things. That's why I want to have this
And do you have
retreat
anything
center.
else musically that you want to share with everyone before we
Before
sign
we sign
off?
off, yeah, thank you.
Any songs or things that people can look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a weird transitional space with my music. I produced a couple tracks with Norbert Putnam. Norbert was Elvis's bass player and produced Jimmy Buffett. It's all Jimmy Buffett stuff. I worked with him on a few tracks before COVID, and so I've just been sitting on those. In fact, the intro to this podcast is a portion of the version of Breed that we did. So I don't know. I'll release that at some point.
Nice.
I'm just playing music. I'll just playing. Oh, New Year's. We have New Year's
Uh-huh.
Monkey Medicine. New Year's third annual coming up. That's an event I'm producing with Sarah. We'll be at the Ecovia San Mateo. So if you haven't bought your
Mhm.
tickets yet,
Well, and you're also like our local band, like you're the
one
Valley
of them.
Band. You're one. I mean, I don't know many of the other ones, but the Taco Tall Road Rockers with Human, it's definitely like the house band, that we have here, and so we can always expect like fun music. It's super dancey, the style that you guys
Yeah,
play, and you
yeah.
play
We've
your
been
stuff. You play a lot of
yeah,
like funk, and
yeah.
it's super fun. So that's also something I think that people can really expect when they come here is just
Oh, good
that
music.
good music all the time.
And sitting around
Yeah.
the fire. It depends on the time of year.
Also.
It always
Mhm.
depends on the time of year. Going to the river is in this dry season is really fun. Fires.
Mhm.
We have a good time. I love this place. I really come visit. Come check us out. FincaVidaVerde.com. You can contact me directly. Yeah, whatever. If you have a retreat you want to host here during the dry season right now, we have mostly camping. But we have some upgraded spaces. We can host your retreat, nature based, go to the river. It's epic.
Nice. And on that, thank you so much, Matthew
Thank you,
Human,
Matthew
for
Human Sarah Wu.
for being here on the La Vida Verde podcast. And thank you all of you just for watching and for supporting. And please share this around if you feel inspired. And we will see you next time. Thank you.
And you can find us every week. We release episodes every Tuesday. La Vida Verde podcast on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music. If you like this, please support us. Patreon.com/La Vida Verde podcast. Our Instagram is Finca Vida Verde CR. We're on Facebook. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Sarah. And Sarah Wu wearing a black t-shirt and her hair in a
And a top
bun
knot.
to be Matthew Human. Love you. Thank you, Sarah
Thank you
Wu.
so much.
Okay. Ciao.